Did you ever go back like your favorite podcast and listen to like episode 1, and the audio was just like the most echoey, disturbing thing you've ever heard?
Yeah. And then I didn't even
At,
finish the episode.
yeah. At the very least, when people go back to our episode 1, the content might be weird. The conversation might not be that great, but the audio, chef's kiss.
Yours did. My mic was like right here.
Never mind, the audio was fucked up.
Your audio was nice.
All
my mic was by my
like
ear.
above your head.
And when I listened to it, I'm like, why can't I even hear myself? I know I talk very low, but jeez. We learn. Remember commercials back in the day, like in television? Like just random stuff.
JT, there's still commercials, man.
Really? I don't really watch TV much, obviously.
Remember commercials?
we could play this later. It'll be applicable later in the future.
Listen, kids, back in the day when you were watching your favorite television show that was only on at a certain time that week, and if you missed it, you missed it. It was gone forever. You don't know where you're finding that. There'd be
TV
breaks
guides.
in the show. There'd be breaks in the show for ads. These advertisements were random.
Random. Like, why would I
O'Reilly's
want to
Auto
watch
Parts.
Colgate? Or man, that's one of the songs that just stick in your head.
Yeah, banger. Yeah, for everyone who's had Spotify, the free version with ads, you know that O'Reilly's when that joint hits like mid workout, and you're just like, God damn it, man.
Pay for this damn Pandora. God damn it.
Where even? I've never even seen one of them joints. Like, where is an O'Reilly's Auto Parts, bro? Like, what is O'Reilly's Auto Parts? Is it like Pep Boys?
Are you serious right now?
Yeah.
Oh, you're from the other side of the world. That's why.
Yeah, see? I'm from the Northeast.
Yeah, I guess it's like Pep Boys. You buy some like hammers and stuff in there.
I like when you think about an auto parts store, the first tool that comes to mind is a hammer.
Hammer and some nails, man. You just gotta nail it down. Nail it
Please,
down.
I hope to goodness you're not doing any work on your Tesla. You've given that to somebody else.
Put some oil in that.
Just constantly trying to put gas in it.
Well, I'm trying to get going.
But why would this thing go? Oh man, this actually like.
What are we talking about, man?
I was gonna say this product talk is low key relevant. Is low key relevant to the conversation that we're having today. At least some of the ways I'm attacking it.
It kind of is. What are we talking about, though, man? I'm gonna keep talking commercials if you don't bring me back.
But today, we're talking about more than O'Reilly's Auto Parts. We're talking about how do you know if your session is good? And I think it's actually a really interesting topic to talk about just us two, because releasing next week is our podcast episode with Tim Karen. And he touches on this a little bit in that episode specifically, and kind of how he thinks about creating a good session. But also he has other content out there about just that. So if you want to go down a deeper rabbit hole into defining what a good session is after this episode, there's way more information out there, and you can also look forward to that episode coming out next week. But I guess first things first, like, let's define good. Right, so a good class, a good session, a good workout, that could probably mean about 100 million different things, both subjectively and objectively. So for you, when someone says, you know what, this coach has a great class, right? Or, if I'm an athlete, this coach is running great speed sessions, right? Like, what does that mean for us as coaches?
Yeah. I think first thing that comes to mind for me is energy. Like whatever I put in, generally speaking, whatever I do, as long as that thing that I do gives me energy, I feel good, right? That's what I would consider a good thing. And in the context of class, right, at the end of this class or session, do I have energy more than I started?
Hmm.
right? So for me, that's the first things that comes to mind is like, how would I define what a good session is for myself? Is do I have more energy coming in than or coming out of it than I did coming in? And then
Hmm.
from there, I have these little buckets of how I get there. But what about you?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about this more so of like, how do I? Well, first, like, how do I define if any product or service is good? Right, just
Mm,
like point blank period. Like what things come into play when I'm defining the quality of a product or service, right? So whether it's like comparing two dentists or comparing O'Reilly's Auto Parts and Pep Boys, like what factors are at play that help me decide where I'm going to end up, spending my dollars and spending my time, right? So I think
sure.
the biggest things that came out for me was one of them is the energy, right? So like thinking about the value, the impact, just the vibes, for lack of a better term. Like, what are the vibes? So subjectively, qualitatively, like how does it feel? How do I feel when I'm there? What do I feel when I think about it? And then from there, we get into something like more objective. So like, what is the value add as measured by something? Like objectively. So what is the quality of the service? Like this dentist does a really good job at cleaning my cavities or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? And then both of those things, I think about it like an equation. Like I'm adding the vibes plus some sort of objective value, all divided by the total cost. So then, like for a product like or a service like the fitness industry, some some people will bias other sides of the top of the equation. So some people will bias the vibes, the energy more, and then other people will bias the outcome, the
Right.
value add more, right? But like for each individual person, each individual consumer, they're going to be looking for maybe more of one than the other, right? Or a mix of both, right? Every consumer is going to be a little bit different. As long as they look at that top of the equation of the vibes, the energy, and the actual objective outcome, what they get from it, and say, for the cost, this makes sense, then I think you're in a decent position to say, like, the session is good for that specific consumer, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, before you kind of jump into the consumer, because you touched on that, when you say total cost, go over
Mm-hmm.
that again. What do you mean by the total cost of it?
So cost could be time. It could be like monetary, like dollars spent. It could be like a physical cost, like soreness, fatigue, things like
Mm,
that. Like how it fits within your overall life. Like the trade offs you're making to be there, all a part of the total cost, right? Like you could
yeah.
go to a gym that you love, getting great outcomes. You love the vibes there, you love the community there, but it's 30 minutes from your house,
Right.
and you go in the afternoons and it's work traffic, it's rush hour, right? So now, from a cost standpoint, the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze anymore. So you might choose a different product, a lesser product from any avenue you look at it, because the
Mm-hmm.
cost is lesser, right? And I think like that, the cost aspect is something that, like, for good or bad, is always going to be taken into account. It's somewhat within our control, but some of the time stuff is going to be outside of our control.
Sure. Sure. Now, going back to the lens of a coach, because I think
Mm-hmm.
that's almost from the lens of a consumer, right? If we're
Yeah.
looking at a specific session, this is the cost, whether it be time or money, that will take from my pockets or day to get to the session. Is there a cost that we can look at for the coach as the coach?
Yes, but I don't know if I'm like the best at pricing. If I'm the one to give the best pricing advice, but I think it's just like taking that into account, understanding like looking at the market, looking at your expertise in your area for this specific service, like how are you pricing yourself
Yeah.
for your time, and then also like understanding like the amount of time you're spending within a session on different things, like
Mm-hmm.
what does this person value, like what is the goals of the philosophy of my sessions that I'm marketing, like am I spending the time on those things that I say are important. Like, I think that's probably, when you think about things within your control, it's like the pricing, it's the time of the classes, it's the duration
Right.
of the classes. Like, how can we get those ducks in a row to where you're still, getting the income you feel you deserve, but also, you know, setting people up for success and getting people in the door.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Probably worth another episode to chat about, because I think that's a common question that I get amongst
Mm.
coaches. Like, how much do you price your sessions and whatnot? But going back to the actual session itself,
Mm-hmm.
talk let's talk a little bit more about the objectively speaking. How can we
Yeah.
um, look at this, and subjectively, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, other than energy, my answer. What
Mm-hmm.
other things can we look at from there?
Yeah. I think similar to you, like if you were to ask me this like a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have been like leaning, especially for general population and even for like athletic populations I work with, like leaning really heavily into the qualitative, like the energy, the relationships,
Right.
the like the feel of the class, and not so much into like the objective measures piece. Um and I think historically it's something I've done like poorly throughout my career, is like objectively measure, objectively assess, and reassess for the general population. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like it's really easy to get stuck in just focusing on vibes.
It's easy to
Yeah.
focus on the vibrations
Yeah. Like it's just, I'm just thinking about the vibes. The vibes are good. We're good.
versus the vibes and the
Yeah.
qualitative or
Yeah.
quantitative data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was listening to a podcast episode with Tim Karen, and he was like, if your classes are just all vibes, then like you're just F45 and Barry's boot camp and whatever. Like yeah, you might have a periodized program, but you don't actually know if it's getting people better if you're not testing.
I think to with that answer, like that I mentioned earlier with the energy, it's
Mm-hmm.
like instant feedback that we get as coaches, right? If you focus on the
Mm-hmm.
vibes in, you get the vibes out, right? When you're done, you feel
Yeah.
good. So I think that's why it would be easy for us to really just
Mm.
hang our hats on that, right? If you think of the F45s and XYZs, like they feel good. You get a workout in, you're done, you sweat, you made some friends, or you saw your friends again, and it's like, okay, that's the things we hang our hat on as a coach, and seeing people laugh and smile when they leave. And I think that's just like reaffirming like a one part of the good session that we do a good job on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, that's a great way to say it. Like, we don't want to create a false dichotomy here, right? Where it's like qualitative or quantitative. Like, there's no reason you can't be good at both. Like, there's no reason you can't have great vibes and also like objectively show progress. And I think one of the things when I like reflect on like why I've sucked at this throughout my career, at least in my opinion, why I've sucked at this throughout my career, especially with the general population, is because 99% of people have really shitty goals. And I've done a bad job of helping
Mm.
them craft better goals, right? And what I mean by that is if someone comes in and they say their goal is weight loss, or they say their goal is feeling better, that's not a great goal. It's not super specific. It can be hard to track if it's, we're saying like, hey, I just want to feel better. But now it's for me as a coach, like let's objectively define something that's gonna be a proxy measure for this goal, right? So maybe it's, hey, like you get more aerobically fit as measured by X, Y, and Z. Like we're gonna run a mass test, right? We're gonna run a VO2 max test and test it again if you randomly have the ability to do that in your facility. Like feel better. It's like, hey, we're gonna objectively improve the quality of your squat as measured by this FMS, as measured by hip cars, as measured by whatever. Like you objectively measure it, and no, it's not perfect,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not a one for one assessing feeling better, but it's a decent proxy measure.
Right.
And maybe you can have some subjective analysis in there too. Like you rate how you feel when you wake up in the morning. You rate how easy it is to go throughout your day. You rate how easy it is to play with your kids, whatever. subjectively 1 to 10. But then now we can reassess and say, hey, you are getting better. We're making meaningful improvements towards your goal. We've checked this box. Now let's keep going. Right. And me as a coach, like, yeah, I'm giving them autonomy. I'm giving them a seat here at the table when we're making these decisions, but I'm helping them craft a goal that isn't shitty, right? That can actually be measured and improved upon, all while keeping vibes high.
Yeah.
So I'm not ignoring the vibrations. But what do you think about quote unquote objectifying and making like an actual specific goal and focusing on the quantitative side of the session?
Yeah. No, it's a thought I've been having for a while now, and especially in the context of a group class, right? I think common conversations I have with coaches is like, if I'm teaching a group class, which is, let's call it 10 to 20 people,
Mm-hmm.
and in terms of specific goal, it's not like a personal training goal where, okay, this person comes to you and they say they want to do one pull up. This group class, you don't really know what the group's goals are other than
Mm-hmm.
them wanting to come into class. So I think the idea of giving them a goal is something I've been trying to experiment with, and
Yeah.
that gives me a better way to have a long-term view of the class itself, to have proxy measures, right? And
Yeah.
for me, like giving people a goal of a pull-up or being able to do a pull-up, assuming if they can't do one now, giving them a goal of, can you run a mile? Like, even though they don't verbally say they want to do that, I think we as
Yeah.
humans can at least agree on some things, or at least we as coaches can agree on some actual goals that we can um, understand and appreciate about the humans that come to our class. And I'm talking about both athletes and Gen Pop, right? I think
Yeah.
the what's one answer you usually hear that people want to come in with a goal with, or what goal do you usually hear from clients or coaches say, hey, my client wants to do this,
I'm trying
lose
to
body
get
fat.
like you, big dog. Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah.
That's what I say. It's like, you big dog,
But it's
right?
body
Body
fat. It's
composition,
body fat. Body
body
composition. For
composition,
sure.
weight
For
loss,
sure.
whatever it is. Okay, now what? Like, you can't stop there. Like,
Yeah.
people want to feel better, like you said. People want
Yeah.
to, right? And we shouldn't assume, but here are like human characteristics that we should all appreciate. And if they don't verbally say that to us as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
it's our job now to understand, like, this person probably doesn't want to be in pain. This person probably wants to be able to walk
Yeah.
up the stairs if they wanted to, or run a mile, right? So I think
Yeah.
these things come to mind for me. Like, what other goals can we look at other than, okay, everybody wants to look good naked. That's
Yeah.
okay. Let's
But
understand that.
even a weight loss goal isn't necessarily a great proxy measure for the quality of our sessions, for the quality of our
Right.
class. Right? Like
Right.
when you think about what all goes into weight loss,
Mm-hmm.
right? And thinking purely about the factors within our control and within our clients' control. Like a lot of it is out of our control. Like what they eat,
Right.
when they eat, their
Mm-hmm.
relationship with food, how much they're sleeping, how they're managing stress. And as we kind of move away from food, it gets like less and less significant. But still, like a lot of it's outside of our control. What's happening, a lot of it's happening in 23 hours of the day outside of their time with us, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
class or whether it's a one-on-one. So like even in that situation, let's define another goal that allows us to objectively track the quality of our programming, the quality of
Mm-hmm.
our coaching, right? And it like you said, like it doesn't like it could be anything. Like it could be a 1 mile run, it could be a 5K, it could be like a 10-minute assault bike, a horrible gross test. It could be
Don't do
it,
that.
it could be so many different, like it could be anything. And the one thing I kept coming back to when I was thinking about this is that CrossFit, good CrossFit gyms do this better than anybody else. Like point blank, period. Good CrossFit for the general population, good CrossFit gyms do this better than anybody else. Right? You come in, your goal is weight loss. Cool. We're going to teach you how to snatch. Like, is that not the best? Like, that's not the best. Like, it doesn't make any sense. but they have hella people in their gyms. Like they're constantly assessing and reassessing. They test every year. They obviously get the vibes right. Like, yeah, from a programmatic standpoint, it doesn't always make a ton of sense. But again, these are the good gyms that actually have meaningful progressions for people. They individualize in the group environment, right? This is the tip of the spear as far as their offering. And they do the best job of objectively saying, hey, you got fitter based on our definition of fitness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if one, other gyms define that well, like define what's important to them well, and two, test and reattest as well and show improvement as well as a good CrossFit gym does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think when you're saying that now, it's I like the analogy of like candies and veggies to kids, right? I think if I'm focused on just the vibes of my
Yeah.
class, that's just given the sweets, given the candy, given the things that short in a short term span, you get instant gratification, right? And if our sessions are just vibes, just having fun, the games, which is all important in some contexts, but if that's all your class really relies on, going back to the analogy of giving sweets to your kid, like they're gonna like you, right? When you give it to them, but then are you actually giving them the service that they need, or the life that they need in the long term? So short term versus long term. I'm looking at this now like as the vibes, the whatever you define vibes as a
Yeah.
coach. If that's all you rely on and not um, the quantitative data that like people want, essentially, if even if they don't know that they want it, like can we also understand that too?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I'm stuck on auto parts, but like, I don't know a damn thing about cars. Right.
Me
So,
and you
like,
both. Me
yeah.
and you
So, like,
both.
when I go, it's a little bit different, but like when I go into, the repair shop and they're like, oh, your air cabin filters like needs replacement. I'm like, why do I don't care. Like, what does that even do? Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. Okay. It's $100. Say less. I'm out of here. Nah.
You're
But
better
like
than me. I'm like, oh, okay, I knew that. You're
but
right.
oh yeah, facts. I know what that is. But they make you care, right? Now, I'm not saying that like they don't have ulterior motives of like making a ton of money off of like people who don't know anything about cars, but they're gonna make you care about the thing that's wrong. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing here, hopefully with no ulterior motives, right? I'm not trying to sell you something that's not for you. I truly believe that this service that I have is going to help you. I'm going to make you care about strength. I'm going to make you care about mobility. I'm going to make you
Because you care.
care. Yeah, because I like, and again, like I'm just calling out different things. I'm not saying necessarily this is my full philosophy, but like, based on my experience, based on my understanding, this is what I as a coach feel is really important. This is what we as a
Mm-hmm.
gym, we as a company feel is really important. Right. So I'm going to communicate like, hey, and I think that's right for you, like truly. So now I'm going to communicate this stuff in a way that makes you care about it. Right. Like you're coming to me to get out of pain, to feel better. And I think like movement variability and range of motion is really important for you. But you don't know a damn thing about that. Like you don't know what that stuff is, but I'm going to show you why it's important. I'm going to objectively track it and show progress, right? And make you care about this stuff. Like before, a lot of people walk into a CrossFit gym, they don't know what a snatch and a clean and jerk is. They've never been on a rower, right? But all of a sudden now they care about their 2K row times,
Yeah.
right? They're making them care about something that they never thought about before,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's based on like they feel that this is the best way to help someone get fit, to help someone lose weight, to help someone live a long and active lifestyle. So it's like some of that onus is on all of that onus is on us, right? Of how can we communicate stuff in a way that makes people care about it. But I think like now we're starting to get into like the practical advice piece of this whole thing. So like you were talking about finding those objective measures, right?
Yeah.
Creating, especially in a group environment, because it's way harder in a group environment for sure. But like finding those objective measures. So like, what advice do you have for coaches out there working, especially in a group environment, of balancing this vibes and objective measures and finding assessments and finding tests that make sense?
Yeah. Again, I'm going back to short term and long term. We need to look
Mm-hmm.
at both views, right? I like the
Mm-hmm.
analogy of binoculars. We need to be able to zoom in when we need to and also zoom out. So, in a group setting, what is this group as a whole working towards?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't give you exactly what they want to work towards, again, go back to humans. Like, okay, we probably want to look good naked. We probably want to move better,
Mm-hmm.
right? We probably want to play with our kids or all these things that you can make a whole list of. These are your goals as a coach that we can look at from a long term view of things that
Mm-hmm.
we can measure, right? So we need both vibrations
Mm-hmm.
and the data and the things that people want to get better at, right?
Yeah.
So short term versus long term, the vibes, you define that. Is it music? Is it your jokes? Is it
Mm-hmm.
it's your coaching style, right?
Yeah.
Not the workout itself, but it's the coaching style. How do you speak to things? How do you give analogies? What analogies do you give? That's like the vibrations. That's the community that you create, right? And then
Yeah.
the everything else, the long term, the veggies, going back to the analogy of the kids, right? The things that we need, the protein.
Mm-hmm.
How do we now interject that within the programming itself to make sure they're getting um, what they need essentially in their own bodies and lives coming out of it. So when you think of a good session for me, I'm looking at it. Okay, what's a good session in the day, and then a good session in the week, good
Yeah.
session in the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking your micros, your mesos, all that stuff. So that's kind of my advice in terms of how do you put on your binoculars and start to define those things for yourself. But yeah, what's a
Yeah.
I went so many analogies there. Maybe you should.
What analogy mad, bro? I like them though. I'm zooming in and out on my veggies and my candy, bro. No, I like it. I like it. It's almost like it makes me think of like, all right, the vibes are how you do it, and the objective stuff is like what more so what we do, right? So what are we actually doing? What are we actually testing and trying to improve? And then how we deliver it, how we actually go about our business is more of the vibrations, right? And again, I don't want to create a false dichotomy. Both are important, and like some coaches are more vibes, some coaches are more objective. That's okay. We're all different, right? Like I think, but everybody needs both. If you want to actually say you have a good session, you have a good gym, you need both to be present. And yeah, I agree with a lot of with what you said. And I think like specifically for me, when I'm thinking about vibes, I'm thinking about just like human nature, a little bit of self-determination theory, like how can we support autonomy and give people decisions? How can we build a community? How can we be our authentic self as coaches? Like go back to episode 1 about talking about our coaching philosophies and defining your philosophy. I think that understanding yourself as a person, as a coach, goes a long way. So run that one back if you need to. But then from an objective standpoint, like similar to what you're saying, I think it's just like pick something to test and retest, right? And you're gonna pick something that doesn't make sense and is a fail, and that's okay. But like just pick something and see how it goes. Like even for an athletic population, I think I always think about their goals tend to be. I don't even know if I don't even know if it's easier to define. I don't even know if it's better, but I guess they're a little more straightforward. Like, hey, I want to get faster. I want to feel faster on the field. But that could also mean like a million different things. Like, you might feel slow
Sure.
on the field because you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're out of position all the
Right.
time. Like, it
Right.
might not
Yeah.
be a physical quality thing. But even
Mm-hmm.
then, all right, cool. What I have control over for the most part, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna get you faster as defined by a 10 fly, like 20 build 10
Mm.
fly. Same thing for our Gen Pop. Like, I'm gonna get you stronger as defined by a 5 rep max RDL. Like, again, like, what do you think is important for this person? Is it
Right.
strength? Is it mobility? Is it hypertrophy? Like even hypertrophy, like hey, I'm gonna get you bigger as defined by your 10 rep max bench press. Is it the best measure of chest size? No, but is it objective? Yeah, like it's a pretty solid proxy, especially for a relatively untrained member of the general population, assuming that you're not
Sure.
training bodybuilders,
Sure.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, finding that balance, man,
And
between
it,
the
it, it
vibes.
is important, right? They're both equally important, right? If you're
Mhm.
swaying one way or the other, if you're if you yourself are looking yourself in the mirror and you're like, I'm more about the vibes, or on the other side of that coin, oh,
Mhm.
I'm all about the data. I'm all about
Mhm.
the things that we can measure. Like, you should probably talk to each other, right? Go talk to the person
Yeah.
that's strong on the vibes, or go talk to the person that's strong on really measuring what matters. So they're both equally important, and I think we both agree on the what a good session is how we're balancing the two.
Yeah. And I hate. I feel like again, like this is now just me getting like shouting into the void because again, like spending way more time on social media than I ever had because of like this show. But like we always run these stupid thought experiments on social media where it's like, well, like I'd rather be all vibes because then at least I have people in the gym, or like, well, I'd rather be all objective focused, that way at least I'm getting better. Like this is stupid. This is a waste of time and energy. Like why even why argue that? Like both of those situations suck and they're not real. They don't have to be real. Like if you're all vibes theoretically, then awesome, you're not actually making improvements. And if you're all objective, then awesome, you're not actually getting people in the door. Like, but again, these are fake. These are not real things. Like, you could do both. Like, it's and I genuinely don't think it's that challenging to do both.
Well, it's hard to look at it from social media because that's
Yeah,
really good marketing.
yeah,
At the end of the day, if you sway one way in the pendulum, you're going to get the people who sway in that pendulum, unfortunately, right? I don't think they're in the same conversation that we're in. Like, we're not trying to sell anything.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
really. Like,
yeah.
we're just trying to be in the middle. That's not sexy at all.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think we said something though. We stood on business a little bit, saying that you should have some objective measure. And if you don't, like, let's work to find something.
Right.
Right. And then contextualize it for the people that like make them care. Contextualize it
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah. Right.
I'm just keep looking down at my notes and I don't remember why, but I just circled and starred the moment they stop having fun with it, they be done with it. Aubrey Graham. I don't I don't know why I wrote that in the middle of my notes, but
Shout out Aubrey Graham.
that's just in the middle of my
Say it one more
that
time. Repeat.
the moment they stop having fun with it, they be done with it. I can't even remember. It's like out of context on the page. I don't know why I wrote that. Just I don't know what's wrong
Is
with
that
me.
on your arm somewhere? No.
No, it's not. I don't have any text. I have numbers on my finger, but that's about. I'm gonna go no text, no script. I'm way too bad of a speller and a spell checker to send a quote on my body. So I think we
Your
should
tat
probably.
artist be like, "You sure you want? You sure you want this? Phil?" Yeah. Put it on
All right. I think that's a good
there.
stopping point. Oh man, but hopefully people find value in this conversation, and if you're having trouble objectively or finding something to objectively measure, like we're always around, hit the DM, bounce ideas off of us. We help you find something, help you test and retest because it's never going to be perfect on your first try, right? So, JT, on that note, where can people find you?
Instagram, IG, CoachJT.mp3.
You can find me on IG at Nashville. You can follow the show on IG at Pushin Performance No G. That's also on YouTube as well. So you can subscribe and see JT and my beautiful faces and see us spinning around in our chairs throughout the show. But as always, if you love the show, please rate and subscribe. Leave us a lovely little review wherever you get your podcast. And hit us up in the DM. Start a
Please.
little convo. Please, 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 please. We're
Please do.
social. All right. Catch y'all next time.
Later.
Put my fist, burning in the heat, roll, get a lot, put my